I think that the creation of art is a very difficult thing. Even the making of subpar, crappy art is still supremely difficult. And I think that due to the rejection or belittlement you may receive when you tell someone that you are interested in doing something artistic, I think it is necessary for someone who is an artist, a writer, a creator of any type, to form a really strong identity surrounding this occupation. Art is something that can and will consume your life. And I think Look Back does a really excellent job at illustrating this fact. Look Back starts off with Fujino in 4th grade. As an elementary school student, she draws manga strips for her school's newspaper. People are very complimentative, they appreciate her art, they say she's great and she could be a professional manga artist, and then she turns around and says, "Oh, I was busy, so I drew that strip in 5 minutes." Even as a child, she has a little bit of an ego surrounding her art skills. That is, until Kiyomoto, another student who's a bit of a recluse, gets a manga strip in the newspaper as well. Kiyomoto's art is of a much higher quality than Fujino's. It's obvious that Kiyomoto puts a lot of effort and work into her art. She's very skilled, she's very talented, and obviously she's a much better artist than the average 4th grader. Fujino realizes that Kiyomoto practices drawing and practices making art, and as a result of this, she begins to practice her own art. Fujino decides that she will not be beat by a 4th grader, so Fujino allows this obsession with art to consume her. She practices drawing all year, she practices getting better, she starts studying art books, she starts drawing any and everywhere, and she lets this overwhelming urge to be better consume her. And I think honestly this is a very common thing with creatives. I think it's better in all fields to just want to improve and to be the best and to be better than everyone else, but I think it takes on a little bit of a different form in creative fields. I think that because of the fact that so much of creativity is subjective and whether or not a piece of art is great or trash is entirely in the eye of the beholder, I think due to that and due to the personal nature of the creation of art, I think that there are competitions and rivalries that are unlike anything else in any other field. I think that whenever you remember all these things, there's just this overwhelming feeling that you can be better than whatever it is you don't like. You can look at someone who's successful and you can say, why are they so successful? Why am I not successful? And that can drive you to want to improve and be better and beat them. But of course, all this comes at a cost. Fujino, as a result of wanting to get better at drawing, doesn't spend so much time with her friends. She seems distant, her test scores are dropping, her family is worried about her. She allows her passion for art and for drawing to completely consume her. And really, this is something that I think is necessary if you want to be successful in any creative field. I think it's inevitable in any field that if you don't want to practice and give something your all, then someone else will practice and give something their all, and they will be better and come out on top. So I think that if you hope for even the slightest amount of success, it's necessary to dedicate your life to your craft in this way. So I think that can create a really strong identity for you as an artist or for you as a creator. And another thing that creates a very strong sense of identity is the rejection that you receive from other people. Fujino's classmates tell her that she's getting too old for drawing. People will think that she's a creepy otaku if she keeps on drawing and making manga. Anytime you do anything creative, it feels like there are always people there who want to pull you down and want you to stop. Speaking as someone who wants to be a writer, I would tell people that I want to be a writer and I want to write comics and novels and whatever else, and then they would immediately ask me, "What's your backup plan?" And this may be well-meaning, but at the same time, it just hurts to hear that. It's painful whenever you have something that you are so passionate about and that you want so much to make happen, and everyone seems to doubt you and doubt your ability and doesn't even want to give you the slightest shot possible. So I think there are two reactions to that sort of resistance you'll encounter. One is to cave in, to give up, to decide, you know what, yeah, this artistic field is too much for me. I'll never be able to make it as an artist. Or you can do what Fujino does, which is just put your head in the sand more or less and just focus on your art. You can choose to just focus on doing what you have decided to do with your life, as opposed to caring about what other people think. And so as a result of that, I think that creates a strong sense of identity as well. Whenever you're making art, you are aware that you are sacrificing things for the creation of art. And you want to believe that your sacrifices are worth it, and so that causes you to double down on the choices that you've made. But then something interesting happens whenever they hit 6th grade. After an entire year of drawing and practicing straight, Fujino turns in a manga strip for the newspaper, and it's better than the ones that he was doing. She's putting more effort into it, she's not just drawing everyone as stick figures, but still, in spite of all her practicing and her effort and her work, her art is nothing compared to Kiyomoto's art. She sees how lacking she is with regards to Kiyomoto, and she decides to give it all up. and to not draw anymore and to call it a day. Now that she has so much free time since she's decided to give up drawing, she's able to hang out with her friends and hang out with her family, she's able to go to karate classes, and she even goes so far as to throw out her sketchbooks, signifying that she's completely done with the creation of manga. In the same way that she has a really strong identity around being an artist, she has a really strong identity around not being an artist and having given it up. It's either all or nothing for her. Either she's going to dedicate every free hour she has to the creation of art, or she's going to dedicate no time to the creation of art. But then that changes on the last day of school. Kiyomoto is still a recluse and a shut-in, and so Fujino is asked to deliver Kiyomoto's diploma to her. The two girls have never met before because Kiyomoto has never gone to school. Fujino enters Kiyomoto's house and she finds a hallway full and packed with sketchbooks. While Fujino has a small stack that she asked her mom to throw away, Kiyomoto has stack after stack after stack, showing that she's been practicing and practicing and practicing. Kiyomoto doesn't come out of her room, and so Fujino draws a comic strip and accidentally lets it slide under her door. Kiyomoto recognizes Fujino's art, and so as Fujino is leaving, Kiyomoto comes running out of the house. It's revealed that Kiyomoto is actually a huge fan of Fujino's work. And Kiyomoto, who Fujino is so jealous of, tells Fujino that she's a manga genius. When asked why she gave up manga drawing in 6th grade, Fujino replies that she didn't actually, and she's been working on a long-form story all along. Kiyomoto, being a huge fan, says that she wants to see some of it, and so Fujino says, "It's already finished inside my head. So basically all that's left is the actual penciling and inking." Which, of course, this is all a lie. And I think you see some really interesting things happen here. For one thing, Fujino has seen Kiyomoto as a rival. She has seen Kiyomoto as someone to be beaten. She wants to be a better artist and she wants to make better manga strips and be a better creator than Kiyomoto. But it's revealed that Kiyomoto is kind of the exact opposite. Kiyomoto loves Fujino's work. Kiyomoto thinks that Fujino is the better artist. Kiyomoto sees Fujino as someone who inspires her. And so I think there's this really interesting thing where, as I was saying, so much of art is in the eye of the beholder. Whether or not something's good, whether or not something's bad, whether it's crap or genius, so much of that is up to the individual in a way that it is not with regards to something like engineering or mathematics. In math, there are a billion wrong answers and there is one right answer. In engineering, you can design a building, but whether or not it stands is whether or not it passes or fails. With art, it's so much more vague and messy and unclear. And I think that also something else really interesting happens, which is that Fujino says that she has this comic planned, and in reality, she has not done anything. And I think that's probably just a natural thing that happens in every field of life, but I know for a fact that it happens in the field of creation, where you say things like, yeah, I have this project I'm working on, when in reality you may only just have an idea or a feeling or a vibe. People will ask you how far along you are with something, but the reality is that art takes a long time. And so especially if you're not practicing every single day like you need to be, it can be very tempting to just tell someone that you're farther along than you actually are. And again, this is not something that is exclusive to the arts or to creativity or whatever, but I still think it's a really interesting point to highlight. So after she tells Kiyomoto that she's working on a manga, Fujino actually begins work on a manga, and it's more than that because it's not just her that's making this manga. She decides to make the manga with Kiyomoto, who handles all the backgrounds. And from that point, Fujino starts drawing every day because she has this project that she's working on. And I think here you see a couple of really interesting things from the standpoint of a creator. One is that it's so much easier to work on something if you know that you're not alone. As I was saying, whenever you are making art, you face a lot of doubt. And some of it comes from other people, some of it comes from people who don't think that you can actually do anything great. But a lot of it is internal, a lot of it is self-doubt. And we've seen this with Fujino already. She doubts herself and she doubts her ability to make good art. She doubts her ability to improve and to be better than Kiyomoto, and so that's why she quit drawing in the first place. But now that she has a friend, now that she's become partners with Kiyomoto in the creation of this manga, that all changes. She doesn't seem to have the sense of self-doubt that she had before. Now that she has a friend, and she knows she's not alone in this world, it's easier to create. And a second thing I want to highlight is the fact that she is able to create because she has a project that she is working towards. Speaking as someone who makes videos and speaking as a writer, it is very difficult for me to just sit down and to do something without having a goal in mind. I know I'm capable of sitting down in front of a computer and just starting to write something, starting to write a story, a novel, a comic script, whatever. I know I can do it, but at the same time, if you have a clear vision in mind, if you have a clear goal, if you have a project that you're working towards completing, I think that makes making art so much easier, especially considering that when you have a finished project, you can then show it to someone, as Fujino and Kiyomoto do. All their hard work pays off, they enter into a competition, and they win the runner-up prize of 1,000,000 yen. And from there, since they were able to finish their first project, and they achieved some monetary success from it, they would achieve some bit of popularity, I think. And so Fujino and Kiyomoto decide to make more manga together. And from there, it looks like the ink flows from their pens readily. They produce a bunch of stuff, making 7 one-shots by the age of 17. And so because of that, they are able to get serialized. One aspect of creation that I want to highlight here is the fact that it is so much easier to create whenever you are already actually creating. In other words, it's much easier to keep going than to stop and start. I think if you've never done anything before, then you will inevitably be nervous and unsure. And then speaking from personal experience, if you do some stuff and then you stop and take a break, and then you try to jump back on the horse, so to speak, that is very difficult. It's very difficult to get back into the swing of things. But if you create something and then you create another thing and then you create another thing and you just keep on going and create stuff regularly, that is so much easier than trying to stop and start. Just when things really look to be taking off for the two of them, Kiyomoto reveals that she doesn't want to get serialized. Instead, she wants to go to art school so that way she can improve her art skills. And Fujino kind of freaks out. Fujino honestly says some things that are very mean and that she shouldn't have said in the first place. Just as people doubted her and her ability to draw and make art, Fujino now casts that same doubt on Kiyomoto's ability to go to art school. Fujino tries to convince Kiyomoto not to go by saying that she'll have to talk to strangers a ton, and if Kiyomoto stays with Fujino, then everything will fall into place. There are 0 job prospects for art degrees. It'll be boring, there's no way you can handle college life on your own. And for Kiyomoto, someone who was previously a recluse and a hermit, it must be so hard to hear these words coming from her best friend. Fujino completely doubts Kiyomoto's abilities to do anything without her, but Kiyomoto stands her ground. She wants to become a better artist, and so she goes off to art school. And I think this is a really interesting point because she decides to go to art school as opposed to drawing manga every day. And I think that whenever you're an artist or a writer or a musician, whatever, I think there's this push and pull where it's like, should I study the fundamentals more? Should I study the basics and try to improve my craft that way? Or should I simply make stuff? And honestly, I believe that you should just make stuff, and I think you'll inevitably get better that way. But at the same time, I think there is a cap to that. And so I think that intentional practice is absolutely necessary for improvement. While Kiyomoto is at art school, Fujino becomes a successful manga artist. She starts making a manga called Shark Kick, which sounds a lot like Fire Punch to me. And everything is good until she turns on the news and sees that Kiyomoto's art school has been attacked. It's revealed that Kiyomoto was killed by a man with an axe-like tool. The man went around the school killing 12 students, wounding 3, and it was all because he believed that they stole the art that he put up online. And this is a really interesting idea because I feel like at one point or another, everyone feels like their work has been copied or stolen in some way, shape, or form. And whether or not you are correct, whether or not someone has intentionally stolen your art or music or writing, or whether someone has done it unintentionally, or whether they did it at all, I think it's still possible to feel like you have been ripped off or stolen from, even if you were not right. But Fujino feels guilty, as Kiyomoto was one of the people who was killed by the man with the axe tool. So Fujino goes to Kiyomoto's house. Fujino finds the comic strip that she drew for Kiyomoto telling her to come out of her room. And Fujino feels guilty because she believes that if she hadn't drawn that manga slip and slipped it underneath Kiyomoto's door, and if she hadn't gotten Kiyomoto to come out of her room, then Kiyomoto would have stayed in her room and she wouldn't have died at art school. Fujino feels that drawing is completely useless, and she seems to imagine a future wherein she didn't bring Kiyomoto out of her room. She imagines a reality where instead of Kiyomoto rushing to meet her, Kiyomoto stayed in her room and Fujino left and the two of them never met. In this reality, Kiyomoto stays in her room and she just practices drawing until one day she decides to go to the same art school that she went to where she died in reality. In this alternate reality, Kiyomoto takes a break from painting, where the man then approaches her with the axe. The man begins attacking Kiyomoto, but then she is saved by Fujino. Fujino says that she does karate in the town over and she was out on a run and she saw the guy approach the school and went in and she saves the day, essentially. And this is really interesting too because earlier in the story, we see that Fujino starts doing karate only when she doesn't do manga. So this seems to imply that she would have stuck with it from 6th grade onward. And Fujino, as she says, sees drawing as useless. And so whenever she's imagining this alternate reality, she sees karate as being useful. So it feels to me that whenever she's thinking about all of this, she essentially wishes that she had done something quote-unquote useful, as opposed to sticking with a useless drawing. And Fujino feels guilty. She feels that maybe if she had spent her life differently, then she could have saved Kiyomoto. but the reality is that she's not responsible for Kiyomoto's death. But still, I think we all do this sometimes, where we blame ourselves for situations that are not necessarily our fault. So Fujino enters Kiyomoto's room, where she finds that Kiyomoto still had the sweater that Fujino signed. She sees that Kiyomoto collected all the volumes of Shark Kick and was a huge fan. Kiyomoto supported her friend and was proud of her friend, even whenever Fujino berated Kiyomoto for going to art school. Fujino realizes that Kiyomoto had been supporting her and rooting for her all along, even after they parted ways. And the story ends with these words from Fujino. It's not fun, the entire process is a hassle. It's super unglamorous too. You can draw all day long and still be nowhere near finished. Really, I'd be better off just sticking to reading manga. I shouldn't draw it. To which someone replies, then why do you draw, Fujino? And we see Kiyomoto's reactions to Fujino's work, and we see that Kiyomoto laughs with Fujino, and Kiyomoto loved Fujino's work, and that is the reason why Fujino kept on drawing. It was Kiyomoto's smile, it was her laughter, it was the joy. It was all these things that made the pain of drawing manga worth it. It was because of that connection and because of that reaction that would come about as a result of the creation of manga. That is why art is valuable. That is why people like me and so many others spend their lives doing things that are hard and difficult, writing stories that are about people who are not real, diving deep into our own emotions and into our own feelings, giving way to worlds that don't exist. This is why people make art, it's to make other people happy. It's for the connection that we all feel whenever we experience art together. And so in the end, Fujino keeps on drawing, and that's really all there is to it. As Fujino says, drawing is a tedious process. It's hard, it's unglamorous, and the book ends fittingly on that note. And speaking for myself as a video creator, making videos, as you might expect, is very difficult. It's very hard. It's very time consuming. People are mean oftentimes. People have made fun of my work. They've mocked it. People have told me I suck and that I should give up. People have said some really, really mean things that I'm not going to repeat because they're that bad. But one thing that keeps me going is so many of the beautiful and thoughtful and kind comments that I get on some of my videos. And so thank you all for that. It honestly means a ton. And I'm shocked anytime I receive some kind comments like I have before. So sincerely, thank you. I think in the end, art is a messy thing. I think the way it fits into your life is very, very difficult to grasp. It's something that I've been struggling with a lot. Because in some ways I feel that since I decided to become a writer, I don't really have a work-life balance. All of my past loves and joys and the things I would do for fun in my free time have become research in one way or another. I can't play a video game without analyzing it in some way, shape, or form. I can't read a book without wondering what I can learn for my own writing. I cannot listen to the words of a song or just listen to music or watch a movie, watch a TV show, read a comic. I can't do any of these things without analyzing it in some way, shape, or form and bringing it back to how I view myself as a creator and how I view my own work and the kind of work I want to make. I can't engage with any piece of art without letting it affect in some way, shape, or form how I make my art. And so I think it's a curse in some ways to have to deal with that. I think it's a curse to not be able to just have fun whenever you play a game or read a book or whatever else. But really, I don't know if it's a curse. I think maybe it's a sacrifice that leads to a blessing. It's a sacrifice because while you may not enjoy things in the same way as everyone else, I think that by getting through that, you are able to connect with people. I think that by breaking down pieces of art and trying to understand them, you are better able to build up your art and make it something that other people will resonate with. I think that art is a hard thing to make. It's a hard thing to make a living off of. It's a hard thing to get any kind of respect for. And I think you work long, long hours without seeing any kind of fruits of your labors. I think you work and you practice for longer than people will ever realize. But I suppose that sometimes these smiles are enough to keep me going. So thank you for watching. Have a nice night and take care of yourselves.